This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
This is Global Business coming to you live from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. I am Peninah Karibe. Wherever you're joining us from, welcome to the show. Let's look at the markets. Nigeria's stock market rerouted northwards today, defying negative take-up this week as investors showed further interest in newly listed shares of Nigerian Exchange Group and others. At the close of the trading session today, the market advanced by 0.26%, which helped strengthen this year's positive return, now at 2.43%. Down in South Africa, the JSE was little changed, with its global counterparts mixed as global risks contend with strong U.S. corporate earnings. Coming up on the show tonight, Nigeria's headline inflation rate drops to 16.6% in September. Morocco bans flights from the UK, Germany and the Netherlands. And a Ghanaian shoemaker upcycles wine corks into his footwear line. We begin in Nigeria. The country's headline inflation dropped to 16.63% in the month of September 2021 from the 17.01% recorded in August. The most closely watched index, which is food inflation, dropped to 19.57% in September from 20.3% recorded in the prior month. CGTN's Deji Bademosi has more on that story.
This is the sixth consecutive decline that Nigeria would be recording since April, after the inflation rate peaked at 18.17% in January this year. But the rate of moderation in the inflation figures have been slow and not far-reaching. Prices of goods and services are still very high and beyond the reach of many.
We are talking about just less than 1% drop in the inflation rate. So the drop was very marginal. And inflation rate, I'm talking of headline inflation now, at 16.63% is still very, very high. If there is any complaints around the economy today among the economic players and among the citizens, the complaints are about inflation, the high prices of goods and services. So that speaks to the fact that there is still a whole lot that we need to do as far as inflation is concerned.
Nigeria's inability to attract enough foreign exchange has proven to be a challenge for the economy. Items listed in the core inflation report, which rose by 13.74% in September, depend heavily on scarce forex for importation.
The depreciation in the exchange rate has taken a huge toll on prices across practically all product groups. We are now talking about exchange rate of 570, 575. I think that is quite significant. And that is taking a huge toll on prices, both on core inflation and on food inflation. Then we have challenges of liquidity in the foreign exchange markets. Even accessing foreign exchange, especially in the official window, has remained a major challenge. That is affecting the capacity of manufacturers to access raw materials and therefore affecting their capacity utilization and therefore affecting their outputs. And you know, when we have challenges on the supply side, it has implications for inflation.
Food inflation has continued to rise since 2019, when Nigeria closed some of its land borders to control smuggling and recoup lost revenue. Despite reopening its borders, the price of food items is yet to record appreciable decline.
Security is a major problem around food inflation, especially because of the impact of insecurity on agricultural production. Most of the farmers that are supposed to be on their farm, cultivating, harvesting, planting and all of that, many of them are afraid to go to farm. Many of them are currently in IDP camps. So this is taking a huge toll also on food inflation. Then we have the challenge of high transaction costs at the ports. Getting goods in and out of the port, particularly Lagos ports, has become a very, very difficult thing. This is also contributing to inflation because the high transaction costs will have to be transferred ultimately to the final consumers.
The government has an ambitious plan to bring the inflation rate down to 13% by 2022. For now, though, the biting inflation is eroding people's purchasing power. If the figures do not decline appreciably and quickly, it might be only a matter of time before labor unions in the country begin to push for a raise in wages. DJ Bademasi, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
The momentum in trade conditions in South Africa, temporarily interrupted in July, appears to be recovering, but only at a moderate pace. Conditions remain in negative territory, with the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry Trade Activity Index standing at 39. CGTN's Angela Kopler has the story.
The current index level is 39, which is very concerning. The mid-level data point is actually 50.
The level of 39, I think, for the index, which is in negative territory, as we would call it, is still a very negative figure. It actually implies that about 60% of your people in the trade environment and of the respondents are still viewing trade as not very good.
While sales volumes improved, they remained depressed, with new orders declining in September. The effects of the riots were still being felt.
Of course, we had that developments in July that had a main impact on your traders, especially, and international as well as local trade in certain areas of the country, where because of your linkage effects, it actually filtered through into the total trade environment. So not very good, and that actually had a sort of setback on the trade conditions to see it actually dwindle a bit up to where we are now.
The negative trade conditions are more pronounced in the retail sector, but there's an additional concern.
What we're seeing in terms of trade, especially retail trade, that we know was actually negative year on year in August, indicates to us, that there's something also happening to your consumer, your consumer spending, your disposable income, discretionary expenditure, type of thing.
There was a sector that did perform well despite the bottlenecks at some of the country's harbours.
In terms of international trade problems at the harbours at the moment, to some extent, which was a positive to a certain extent, very positive actually, in terms of your merchandise goods. But also that, had some setbacks to some extent, and the July sort of disruptions had quite an effect on international trade, especially in August and July. And those motor trade, of course, was one of the positives, which is up on year, month on month, and so on.
The economic outlook in the short term is fairly muted, however.
At the moment, the respondents expect, conditions to improve a bit into positive territory in the next 6 months. We know the holiday season is coming up, Christmas holidays, Christmas time. That might help a bit, to ease some of the pressure on the trade environment.
Trade conditions don't look very favorable for South Africa for the next 6 months, and it seems like companies and businesses are going to be muddling along until things turn around. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Still in South Africa, prospectors have stumbled upon a new treasure, helium. Popularly known for birthday balloons and squeaky voices, helium plays an underappreciated role in medical scanners, superconductors and space travel. This rare find, produced by fewer than 10 countries, could earn South Africa the top producer slot of what is often treated as a waste product in natural gas wells. CGTN's Beryl Oro has the story.
The company Renogen is almost ready to start producing both natural gas and helium, placing South Africa on an elite map with helium reserves that could be the richest and cleanest in the world.
Of the 7 nations currently producing helium, America is the highest. The United States produces at around 0.35%. Our average is 3.4%. So already we're 10 times higher than the United States, and that's our average. We have wells over here at 12%, which are completely unprecedented and never seen before.
Natural gas is what Stefano Marani and Nick Mitchell had on their minds when they bought gas rights on an 87,000-hectare piece of land in the Free State province in 2012 for just $1. When they had their gas tested, they discovered unusually high amounts of helium mixed in with the gas, and that meant their dollar investment could be worth billions.
When we were in the throes of negotiating our power agreement, we needed to get a gas sample done that same day. And so we came down, we got the gas samples, we took it up to Joburg, and that was when we discovered there were varying concentrations of between 2 and 4% of helium in our gas. And that was when we knew we had something special.
Natural gas is often obtained by fracking, a process that injects water, sand and chemicals into bedrock under high pressure to split it to release any oil and gas trapped inside.
It's stimulating from a science, from a chemistry perspective, from a physics perspective, from an engineering perspective. There's all of these cool things going on. And then overlaid with the physics and the chemistry, you've got logistics, and you've got the fact that we're dual listed on 2 stock exchanges. There's a lot going on in this project, and there are a lot of layers to peel away on it. But it's a fantastic job, it really is.
Renogen estimates its helium reserves could be as much as 9.74 billion cubic meters, larger than the known reserves in the entire United States. That's enough to fill about 1.4 trillion party balloons.
This project quickly caught a lot of people's attention, and we got financing from the United States government through the OPEC, now the DFC, to build this project.
The global helium market was worth 10.6 billion in 2019, according to the firm Research and Markets. Since few countries produce helium, supplies are frequently disrupted. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
A look at your corporate headlines now. The Constitutional Court of South Africa has ruled that it cannot hear the National Metal Workers Union's application seeking to have Parliament decide whether state-owned enterprises can be allowed to go insolvent. According to the Apex Court, the matter is not within its jurisdiction. There are some 700 state-owned entities in South Africa, but in its supporting affidavit, NUMSA referred extensively to the troubles at state-owned arms company Denel, as well as airline South African Express. The Nigerian Tax Tribunal has cleared MultiChoice, Africa's biggest pay TV provider, to appeal a disputed $4.4 billion tax bill in the country. The South African company's local unit was allowed to proceed after paying a deposit of $19.4 million. The ruling comes as a reprieve for the Johannesburg-based firm. That's because the Nigerian tax authorities had initially said the firm would have to pay $2.2 billion to argue its case. Facebook plans to make a dramatic break with its past by rebranding the company next week. Under the plans, Facebook would change the name of its holding company, but not that of its social media platform known internally as the Big Blue app. Apart from its founding site, the company also owns Instagram, WhatsApp, and the virtual reality brand Oculus. And Google has launched new Pixel 6 smartphones, its latest attempt in a market the tech giant has failed thus far to conquer. The handset sector is dominated by Apple and South Korean electronics giant Samsung, but Google keeps aiming for a breakthrough with its Android-powered Pixel line. That's a look at your corporate news. You're watching Global Business. Coming up, Egypt returns to the JP Morgan Emerging Markets Government Bond Index after a 10-year absence. And Nigeria turns to fintech to bolster economic recovery.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay, we'll head up now.
The Beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible and why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sumitra Nairobi. Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and Global Business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Egypt has finally been allowed back into the JP Morgan Emerging Markets Government Bond Index after a 10-year absence. According to JP Morgan, this step would give access for the government to gain up to $2.4 billion in returns for its local currency bonds market. The North African country had been dismissed from the index due to the economic fallout following the uprising in January 2011. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has the story.
Egypt has tried for the last 3 years to rejoin the index after being removed in 2011, and the review by the benchmark specialized in emerging markets government bonds has finally yielded positive results.
The condition to return to the index was to maintain a steady increase in liquidity, with abilities for larger bond issuances. There must be more foreign investments in the bonds, and they need to be issued at longer shelf lives of up to 20 years. This has been met. At this time, we need a strong purchaser of Egyptian bills, and joining JP Morgan will allow for big sales.
Egypt has been aggressively tapping international debt tools as it rebuilds an economy shattered by years of political turmoil. The central bank says external debt has exceeded $134 billion in June 2021, and JP Morgan Index will open the door for more finance.
The issuance of Egyptian treasuries next January will allow Egypt, which has a weight of 1.85% on the index, to receive investments of up to $10 to $12 billion. This amount gives an incentive to the Egyptian economy to sustain the upcoming global volatility and rising inflation. Egypt will be able to keep interest rates stable or even drop slightly without any pressure on the central bank or the foreign exchange rate.
JP Morgan confirmed that Egypt's government bonds in the local currency with a total value of $16 billion are eligible for the index, and the Ministry of Finance has confirmed it will begin with an equivalent $1 billion issuance in early 2022. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Nigeria is banking on the adoption of fintech to spearhead its economic recovery after the COVID-induced disruptions. Increasing smartphone penetration and a focused regulatory drive to boost mobile financial transactions is helping create the perfect recipe for a thriving fintech sector. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reports from Nigeria's capital, Abuja.
Fintech startup team in a brainstorming session. They're constantly seeking ways to improve services on their mobile app, Kia. It was launched in 2016 and provides swift access to loans to customers and SMEs. Kiakia is the brainchild of Army veteran Olajide Abiola and his partner Chimeziem Anyadike. So far, they've processed nearly 170,000 loan requests and disbursed over $21 million in its 5 years of operations.
You have people who have never accessed any form of loan from the banks prior to the advent of fintech, now having access to loans. They are not just now having access, but they are having timely access to this funding. Fintech is also bridging the last mile access to financial services. You have the rural areas, POS, people now having access to POS services within rural communities where they do not have banks.
We've actually done disbursements exceeding, in the last 12 months, exceeding 3 billion. In a nutshell, because of, because of COVID, there has been a very huge boost in the growth of the local economy. A lot more people pivoted towards, like I said, electronic transfers.
The Nigerian government's been struggling to revive its economy, largely battered by the impact of COVID-19. The West African nation has seen an upsurge of fintechs in the last decade, with over 200 independent companies. That's according to global management and consulting firm McKinsey & Company. Authorities see this proliferation as crucial to the post-COVID economic recovery.
One of the problems the CBN or the economy has been grappling with is that the country is actually not earning enough foreign exchange to be able to meet its foreign exchange demand. So through investment, through debts that are being raised by these fintech companies, they go into funding innovation, product development, and serving as working capital that are solving the problem of poverty.
Fintechs like Kiakia are going beyond quick loans and offering a potpourri of services, not only for borrowers but lenders as well. In it also lies the unique opportunity to invest in and earn from fast-growing industries. More people are keying into fintechs as they pave way for access to financial and business inclusion, even for the unbanked population. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Kenya has lifted a nationwide curfew that has been in place since March last year to curb the spread of COVID-19. President Uhuru Kenyatta, while making that announcement, said infection cases had fallen to less than 5% positivity rate. Kenya's Ministry of Health data shows the country has recorded over 252,000 infections and 5,233 deaths since the pandemic erupted. The East African nation, with a population of 54 million, has received 7.5 million COVID-19 vaccine doses so far, with 4.5 million people having gotten at least one dose. President Kenyatta has, however, urged all Kenyans to adhere to the COVID-19 regulations.
And therefore, given the progress in containing this disease, the committee, jointly with the Council, has recommended a review of the existing containment measures. Accordingly, the number of persons gathering for in-person worship is now reviewed upwards from 1/3 of the congregants to 2/3, provided they adhere to all the health protocols. In the same regard, and by the authority vested in me as President, I hereby order and direct that the nationwide dusk to dawn curfew that has been in effect from the 27th of March 2020 be and is hereby vacated with immediate effect.
Algeria has also announced a full lift of its nationwide lockdown imposed on 23 provinces amid a drop in COVID-19 cases. The decision made on Monday takes effect from Wednesday for 21 days, a statement from the Prime Minister's office reads. Algerian health authorities on Monday reported 78 new infections, a drop from 87 cases a day before. Gatherings such as weddings and sit-ins in the streets and public places remain banned under the country's pandemic sanitary measures. The government has, in the meantime, urged its citizens to get inoculated against COVID-19. In September, Algeria started the production of COVID-19 vaccines as part of a joint venture with China's Sinovac firm.
The number of infected people has decreased a lot in Algeria, and many have also taken the vaccine. Therefore, in my opinion, the risk of the epidemic has weakened considerably, and this decision means we're moving towards definitively turning the black page of the coronavirus.
I advise all Algerians to be careful because despite the government's decision to lift the lockdown, we risk to face a new wave. The virus has claimed many lives.
The Agriculture Department in Tunisia estimates a 7% surge in date harvest amid an increase in production. Despite the difficulties recorded on foreign markets due to the spread of the coronavirus, Tunisia has been able to increase its production and exports.
The Director General of the Interprofessional Group of Dates at the Agriculture Ministry says the production of the variety Diglet Nur, which is the top quality date, is estimated at 305,000 tons against 283,000 in the previous season. Authorities in Tunis plan to boost exports over the next 6 months.
Tunisia exports 120,000 tons to 85 countries in all continents. Europe is our first and main market. It's followed by the Moroccan market and Asia. We are diversifying the dates export market. The coronavirus pandemic slowed down the marketing of dates. But the successful vaccination drive in the world and the waning pandemic will pave the way for increased exports to new and promising markets.
Experts at the Department of Fruit Trays and Distribution Channels at the Tunisian Union of Agriculture and Fisheries assert that the unprecedented heat wave in Tunisia put the whole date crops at risk in the Oasis region.
The hot and extreme weather has negatively affected the quality of dates this season. We were expecting a record dates crop in terms of quantity and quality, but the high temperatures lasted 5 to 6 months. The climatic conditions were not favorable and caused diseases. The dates quality is good, but not excellent, as in the previous season.
Huda is a dates expert who's taking part in the first agricultural exhibition after the end of the COVID-19 lockdowns in Tunisia. She sells organic dates and date-related food products to the domestic and the international market.
Tunisian dates are consumed in different ways. Many products are extracted from this fruit. We make date syrup, jam, sugar, and date paste. We buy dates from local producers, then transform and distribute the fruit in order to attract new consumers at home and in foreign markets.
According to the Trade Department, the exported quantities of organic dates until mid-October have reached 121,000 tons. These quantities are worth around $273 million. According to the Ministry of Agriculture, the production and supply of dates will exceed demand in the next few years, given the increase by 30,000 hectares of date palm cultivation in the country. Tunisia's new strategy is based on developing direct contact between producers and consumers while promoting exports. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
You're watching Global Business. Coming up after the break. Morocco bans flights from the UK, Germany and the Netherlands. And tourism activities slowly pick up in New York's Soho district.
Change is on the horizon. Through the shifting of time, Africa's emerging tech landscape is creating new channels.
There's a hunger for local African content globally.
Shaped by innovation, carved out by a new generation of digital entrepreneurs, sculpted by a mobile revolution, and trickling down to the most remote corners of the continent. TechSpot is seeking out the new concepts in technology, disrupting Africa's traditional sectors.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
holding guns, machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time? Not at all.
What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Business in Africa is at a crossroads. We celebrate those who are adopting and thriving despite the challenges, from grassroots to big businesses. Global Business takes you along for the ride as we track the making of a giant. Only on CGTN.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what do you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Morocco has banned flights to and from the UK due to the rise in confirmed COVID-19 cases. Several UK airlines and holiday travel companies have been informed by the Moroccan government of the suspension that starts from Wednesday. Flights between Morocco and Germany and the Netherlands have also been suspended. This comes after the UK reported nearly 44,000 new COVID-19 infections, with cases hitting about 40,000 for 7 days in a row. The number of patients in hospitals rose by 10% in a week to over 7,700 on Monday. Another 223 deaths were recorded, the largest number since March. Pre-pandemic, New York's Soho district was known for its chic boutiques and bustling sidewalks full of tourists. The pandemic changed all of that. When the number of visitors to New York plummeted, the area was hit hard. But as Peninah Karibe reports, the Big Apple is on its way to recovery, although scars still remain.
In the spring of 2020, New York City became a ghost town. The global pandemic forced the city that never sleeps to come to a screeching halt. A year and a half later, the hustle and bustle has returned, but shopping destinations like Soho are still struggling.
Pedestrian traffic is off dramatically. A lot of retail stores are closed either temporarily or permanently, and it's a market that is going through a reset.
Soho's challenge is that it relies heavily on tourists. Pre-pandemic, the neighborhood was a top destination, but those visitors evaporated amid the pandemic.
I mean, it was devastating for New York City and other big foreign tourist market destinations like San Francisco. And in fact, New York and San Francisco still have not recovered.
Local food vendors can attest to that.
Tourism way was good. Before it used to be people come for a Statue of Liberty, and it's got a lot of tourists. They make 20-25%. I get business from the tourists, but right now it's nothing.
The streets are busier now than they were at the height of the pandemic, but scars still remain. The pandemic forced more than 40 stores in Soho to close, and more than a quarter of the office space is now empty. That is one of the highest vacancy rates in Manhattan.
Average prices for retail leases in Soho were down almost 40% in the first half of 2021 as compared to a year ago. Some are seeing an opportunity. Home decor brand Jonathan Adler just signed a lease for this 740 square meter space in Soho. Other brands have also invested in the neighborhood. As a result, prices have begun to rise. Real estate experts like Jonathan Miller say despite the renewed interest, Soho still has a long way to go. He says it faces two headwinds: the rise in online shopping and the drop in international visitors who he thinks will stay away for a while.
There's an expectation in the long term that rents may recover somewhat, but I don't think they go back to pre-pandemic levels anytime soon.
Karina Huber, CGTN, New York.
China is holding this year's National Mass Entrepreneurship and Innovation Week from now till next Monday. The event is all about displaying and galvanizing broader business development. CGTN's Wang Mingjie tells us more from the event.
As a platform to showcase China's efforts on job creation and innovation, this year's Mass Entrepreneurship and Innovation Week is aiming higher. The annual event is themed high-quality innovation, high-level entrepreneurship and employment. It is showcasing 144 typical projects selected across the country at a main venue in central Zhengzhou. Various activities kick off simultaneously across the country, both online and offline.
This year's event will continue promoting the role of business startups in boosting employment, creating multiple channels to ensure employment for key groups such as college graduates.
China's employment quality has been rising, says a white paper released by the State Council Information Office in September. It also shows the number of skilled workers has reached about 200 million by 2020, indicating a higher quality workforce. For an entrepreneur like Xu Kai, China's mass entrepreneurship and innovation policy is fundamental to starting his business.
I won't start up my own business without the policy. It's fundamental for entrepreneurs. It can ensure a stable funding.
Introduced in 2014, China's mass entrepreneurship and innovation policy has been an effective driver for both the country's economic growth and helping the smooth transition between traditional and new growth engines. It has also significantly contributed to the creation of new jobs and an increase in incomes. To foster an even more welcoming environment for entrepreneurship and innovation, experts say China needs to enhance regulations, ensuring fairness and protection for the legitimate rights of businesses and self-employed. Wang Mingjie, CGTN, Zhengzhou, Ghanaian Province.
The Double 11 Shopping Festival is less than 1 month away, and shoppers are already busy filling up their shopping carts. For many, that shopping starts right at the top. CGTN's Zhang Xishuan explains.
In addition to just finishing their makeup, more young people nowadays are paying increasing attention to their hairstyles before they leave home.
And that has led to increasing attention to scalp and hair health and growing spendings on the home beauty devices and hair care products.
According to data from Taobao Global, recently, sales of anti-hair loss products and hair care essential oils have been witnessing very fast growth, rising more than 200%, and Shanghai ranks the first in consumer numbers that buy scalp care products. People born in the 1990s are most conscious of their scalp health.
The promising market has already attracted plenty of attention from beauty brands, while traditional hair care brands and beauty brands have kept coming up with new hair care products. Some new brands have also emerged on the e-commerce sites.
CBN data says that of the 10 best-selling scalp cleaning and care brands online this year, 2 are locally made, Spaz and Kono. One Spaz product sold more than 2 million bottles in just half a year following its release. Foreign brands are into the market too, with Japan's often relaxed enter the mainland market just this July.
But just relying on those products at home is not enough for the younger generation anymore. They're looking for more professional services at hair salons.
I usually come for a scalp treatment once every 2 or 3 months. The service here is more professional and I enjoy the environment. I can chat with my friends.
I usually come every 3 months or every half a year. I've never had split ends since started coming, and this is more convenient than doing it at home.
Before, we were getting just 40 or 50 people a month coming for scalp care. Now the number has jumped 4 or 5 times, more than 200 a month. They're between 25 and 45 years old, and 60% are women. 20 to 30% of the customers come every week.
Finally, it's my turn. It's my first time to visit a salon for a service like this. Really exciting. They just had a test of my scalp condition and it's showing that it's a little bit dry, so they will add more moisture to my scalp.
And then a good professional scalp massage.
The whole process took around 40 minutes, and I have to admit that I'm now feeling a lot fresher and more confident about my hair. And I just took another test of my scalp, and it shows that it's getting better.
Now that young people's work pressure is so great, it can lead to an oily scalp and even hair loss. So they're paying more attention to scalp care. 3 or 5 years ago, people would just get their hair or scalp services done when they got a perm. But now many of them are coming just specifically for the scalp and hair care service.
The package cost me 880 yuan, and while an average scalp care product on retail sites usually around 300 or 500 yuan. So there are always solutions at different prices catering to just what people want and how much they want to spend. The cheaper products and self-service at home, or the more premium, expensive salon services. A recent survey done by Karibe CBN Data and Tmall Innovation Center shows that 90% of Chinese worry about problems with their hair and their scalp. More than 30% of them regularly check the changes in their scalp and hair health. 40% of them have regular hair care sessions. With numbers like that, the industry is all but guaranteed a very nice-looking future. Zhang Shixuan, ICS for CGTN, Shanghai.
Let's bring you some news just in. At least 17 people have been killed when a truck collided with a passenger minibus in Egypt. The crash took place on a ring road on the outskirts of Cairo. It's not clear so far what exactly caused that accident. Let's look at the commodities market. Oil prices fell today after China stepped up efforts to tame record high coal prices and ensure local mines operate at full capacity as Beijing moved to ease a power shortage. Brent crude futures dropped 73 cents or 0.9% to $84.35 a barrel at 10 GMT this morning, paring 75 cents in the previous session, but still lingering close to multi-year highs. Gold prices, however, rose, buoyed by a slightly weaker dollar that offset surging U.S. bond yields and the lingering fear of a sooner than expected interest rate hikes. You're watching Global Business. Still ahead. A Ghanaian shoemaker upcycles wine corks into his footwear line. And a business in Zimbabwe cycles right to your doorstep for grocery services.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
I've been Shishi, Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Peninah, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival, and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. And no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
A Ghanaian shoemaker has found a way of using wine corks to make fashion accessories. He wants to contribute to the growing trend of sustainable fashion with his eco-friendly footwear. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra on Grassroots tonight.
Stephen Sapon started his shoe business with leather. He began exploring wine cork as an alternative material 2 years ago. The corks are processed into sheets like this, and then sewn together with leather to produce the footwear.
We source them from the local market. It's not only the cork, we also use the sawdust as well. So it's abundantly available. It's only the cork that we cannot get them in full supply.
Stephen collects the corks from hotels and restaurants in Accra, but the supply of his raw material fell when the COVID-19 pandemic forced the shutdown of the hospitality industry last year.
We ended up also importing some of the cork and just recycling them and using them in the sheet form to make our products.
Unlike developed countries where the concept of upcycled fashion is not new to many people, Ghanaians are now only getting used to the idea.
Early stage, you have to do much education, which happens to every business. It's new to this part of our region, and we've known leather as being quality, as being sustainable and all that. but you still need to go down to the people, just let them know the importance or the need for us to have eco-friendly footwear.
While his shoes have attracted buyers from the UK and Canada, Stephen wants to boost interests across Africa. He is looking to tap into the African Continental Free Trade Area platform, which is aimed at boosting intra-African trade for 1.3 billion people, and he uses social media platforms like Facebook to advertise his products. Stephen says his shoes are 30% leather and 70% cork. A pair like this costs $50. Stephen Sapon has trained more than 100 young people in shoemaking using processed corks and hopes to reduce the total dependence on leather, one shoe at a time. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
COVID-19 related lockdowns have led to a dry spell for businesses worldwide. However, a local startup in Zimbabwe has been prompted to be innovative despite the odds. It now offers grocery shopping and delivery services on bicycles in times where some locals have expressed reservations about doing their own shopping as a result of the pandemic. CGTN's Wanja Mungai has that story.
Physical shopping for locals in Zimbabwe has been limited amid the COVID-19 pandemic. However, a local startup has resorted to using cost-effective, eco-friendly means to buy and deliver groceries for their clients in the comfort of their homes using bicycles. The company believes that though the COVID-19 pandemic has come with its downside on the business side, it has, however, promoted innovation and localized solutions to day-to-day challenges.
Rather than us complaining about the lockdown, rather than us complaining about the situation around our country, why don't you come up with a solution? Then we had to be innovative and came up with Mutsapuri. It's just a way of making the youth appreciate that you can start small. You can start with whatever you have, be it a bicycle or what. So a bicycle is very cheap, it's easy to ride, it's easy to service, it's easy to maintain as compared to cars and other forms of transportation.
Emerging businesses such as this require support in terms of favorable policy frameworks and financial bailout if they are to compete and contribute to national business ecosystem. Economists laud the contribution of small to medium enterprises in employment creation and income generation, but stress the need for government to do its bit.
These are kind of like very much ready to deal with some of the things that are just required on our supermarket shelves very quickly on day-to-day by the ordinary public. So they need to be supported, while obviously we're looking at the broader picture of how we readjust to a new world order, to a new world economy, to a new way of doing business.
As the world evolves amidst the pandemic, it might no longer be business as usual. With innovation and creativity using readily available means, Zimbabwe stands a chance to adapt and do well in economic endeavors. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
A music band in the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo is becoming well known for performances using instruments collected from garbage heaps. Members of the Fulu Muziki band recycle material sourced from dumping sites in Kinshasa to produce music that is both entertaining and enlightening. CGTN's Christo Chamringa sent the following report from Kinshasa.
Rummaging for objects dumped in Kinshasa's landfills has become a matter of routine for this group of Congolese. They are members of Kinshasa's Fulu Muziki group. The group recycles objects from trash sites that litter the DRC capital to make musical instruments.
I really like doing things that are unique. Fulu Muziki is a new idea in our music industry. We want to show people that some of the things they throw away in garbage heaps can be transformed and put to good use.
The band's name, Fulu Muziki, literally means music made from garbage.
Scrap metal and other kinds of discarded material are all that the band members of Fulu Muziki need to produce sounds. The Pan-African messages in their songs have appealed to many people in the continent.
The band stages energetic performances with sounds from saucepans, spoons, plastic pipes, and other recycled objects. The artists have performed in concerts in Europe with their unique instruments. The group was started in 2003 by Ewango Mabende, who's better known by his stage name Pisco Crane.
When we started singing, we used to collect objects from garbage sites to produce sounds because we couldn't afford to buy musical instruments. Our neighborhood had a lot of trash. That's how I got the idea of forming a band that plays music using material collected from garbage sites. I believe in artistic liberation.
Aisha Kanyeba is the only woman in the group. She joined in 2016 and has never looked back.
J'ai grandi à la scène de néo-apostolique, musique gospel.
I started my career by singing gospel music in church. I later on decided to shift to urban music. I met many musicians who advised me to listen to rhythms from different musical instruments. I eventually chose to join this group that recycles material to make music which has a universal appeal.
The DRC capital has a poor waste disposal system, but members of the Fulu Muziki band have chosen to do something about it. They have turned discarded objects from trash sites into musical instruments that entertain, and they hope they're educating people about the need to keep their city clean. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
And finally, a look at the money markets. The Nigerian naira gained marginally to the greenback on the back of news that the country's headline inflation dropped to 16.63% in the month of September this year from the 17.01% recorded in August. The South African rand too had a marginal gain as it continued its month-long gaining streak. And with that, we come to the end of Global Business tonight. We'll welcome your feedback. Send it to the contacts on the screen and follow us on our digital media platforms. I'm Peninah Karibe. Thank you for your company.